right here, so they are vertical angles. Okay, and we talked about in our review stuff that we've been doing that vertical angles are always congruent. Now, our goal was to show that the two triangles are congruent. So we have PRQ and let's see, PRQ and TRS are our two triangles. PRQ, and I'm going to put a little triangle symbol in between, and then TRS. Now, notice that I'm saying these in specific orders. I want my corresponding angles and like vertices to match up. So P was where I started with the first triangle. So I want to go to the corresponding angle on the other triangle to start for the next one. So I start with P for the first one, T for the next one. They both go to R, and both of those are congruent. So R is congruent to itself. So that goes in the middle. And then the last vertex of the triangle are Q and S, respectively. Now it says by angle, side angle. So let's go ahead and double check that. We have that this angle is the same for each triangle. Then we have the orange side. Then we have this other double arced angle right here that is congruent. So we do indeed have triangle congruency by side, angle, side. That is wrong. Angle, side, angle. I'm sorry. Okay, so there's your first two. Next we have some more vocabulary and then two more pieces of vocabulary and then two more proofs. So segment bisectors are going to be lines that divide a segment in half. Okay, bisector means to split something into two separate pieces, specifically two equal pieces. Okay, so segment bisectors are something, it doesn't necessarily have to be a line, I guess, it could be a point that divide a segment in half. And then let's go ahead and talk about, so I'm going to highlight all the vocabulary yellow. A midpoint is a point that marks, a point that marks the exact middle of a line. In other words, hold on, sorry. In other words, it bisects it, okay? To bisect means to split exactly in half. That's what a midpoint does, okay? And this is specifically a point that does this. Okay, so those are our two new pieces of vocabulary, segment bisectors and midpoints. So let's go ahead and do our next two proofs, and then you guys will do the 4 proofs on the back as practice. Okay, so for our first one, it first gives us that angle A is congruent to angle E. This is given. Okay, it's given right here. All right. Then it says angle or line AE bisects line BD. So this means that AE cuts BD exactly in half. This tells me that B or DC should be congruent to B or CB or BC. Okay, so those two sections are equal. So I'm going to say that right here. So DC is congruent to BC. Okay, and that's another piece of given information that's given by AE bisects BD. So this piece of information right here gives us that this section is congruent to that section. Okay. Let's see here. What else do we know? So we have that. We have an angle on each thing. We have a side. Oh, I know one. I'm not sure if it's the one that they rats. Well, let's just go ahead and say it because we don't need anything else. The next one that I see are these two angles directly across from one another. Those two angles are vertical angles. They happen to be ACB and DCE. So these two are congruent by vertical angles. Okay. Now, in the very last step, we have that the two triangles are congruent. So let's see what else we have to have in order for our triangle congruence to occur. So we have an angle, and then we have a side, and we also have this angle right here. So we kind of have like side angle angle, or we could say angle angle side right there. Um, And I'm not sure that we need anything more than that. Angle, angle, side is one that we have. They're in the correct order. I don't think we need a step 3. These two triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side. Okay. I guess you could, what else could you do? I'm not sure that you can come up with anything more. So I just don't think we need a step 3 for that problem. And there was another mistake that I had to correct on this one too. So sometimes there are mistakes. Okay, so that one's good to go. Then the very last one that I'm going to do with you guys, the first thing we're given is that N is the midpoint of MO. So let's go ahead. I'm try to using all my highlighters today. N is the midpoint of MO. Okay, so this means that this section and this section are congruent. Okay, those two things are equal. That's that piece of information. LM is congruent to OP, and they've already marked that for us. And then LN is congruent to PN, and they've marked that for us as well. Oh, I probably should have picked a marking that they hadn't already used. They used 1 and 2 dashes, so I'm going to use 3 for mine. Whoops. Okay, so we have that LM as congruent to OP. That's given. LN is congruent to PN. That was given. Was the last piece of information. N is the midpoint of MO was given. Okay, now we can say that MN is congruent to ON by the definition of a midpoint. Okay. And so now we have the triangle congruence theorem that side, side, side gives us two congruent triangles. So we should have that triangle LMN is congruent to triangle PON. Okay, so that's it. So hopefully that helps you guys and the back will make sense to you. I will post solutions for it and please post your questions. A lot of you guys have not been asking very many questions. You've just been saying it's good. And obviously I want it to be good for you guys, but I also want you guys to feel free to ask questions if you have them. Okay, I hope you guys have a great day and I will talk to you later.